So I think it's about time to turn to our first guests today. And I'm really pleased to welcome Tom Vickers and Steve Ware into the studio. Good morning, both.
Good morning.
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Bit warm, but really good, yeah.
It is, isn't it? It is. So I really liked the idea of talking on the show today about art, and art makes a massive cultural contribution, aesthetic contribution as well, well-being contribution, but if you don't have any business acumen, it's very hard to succeed as an artist. And Tom, your father, Andrew Vickers, is an artist with national recognition, international recognition even now, and but his growth, his business growth, his recognition has been supported by your work as well.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, my dad's been a sculptor now for probably over 26 years, and he's always sort of kept to himself, and his publicity's sort of come to him as opposed to him sort of going out there. I started working for him probably 3.5 years ago now, and the idea originally was to sort of come on board and sort of promote him over social media, that sort of stuff, and sort of try and sell an artist if you can, and that's basically what I've been doing for the past 3 years. But it's been a huge learning curve, and it's sort of great to see how it evolves, and how he's evolving as from going from an artist to more of a sort of a business as it was.
Yes, absolutely. And regular listeners will recognise who your father is, because I was talking about Stoneface Creative back on the show a couple of episodes ago.
Oh, right.
You were doing something very exciting in Stores Wood. So do you want to give us a quick recap?
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically we own a woodland gallery. I say that like it's a normal thing, but yeah, every so often we try to do it like once a month. We host sort of events so we can get people into the woodlands, sort of out of the cities and into the sort of countryside and things like that. And the one that we recently did, we teamed up with World of Superheroes, Steve Ware, and we sort of had big 6-7 foot statues of all of these incredible superheroes, entwined with nature, and then of course our artwork as well. And it was a really sort of fantastic day, and certainly a one-off sort of experience, that's for sure.
Fabulous, brilliant. Now it's a good time for us to bring Steve into the conversation. Steve, welcome, and
thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Now, many folk here in Sheffield will know of World of Superheroes, but many don't. So, for people who haven't heard of World of Superheroes, can you just give us the quick 60-second introduction?
Yeah, basically, it's just a website and a company devoted to everything superheroes. Male, female superheroes, galactic superheroes, anything you can think of, to the movies, to comic books, memorabilia. So we promote and sell all these kind of things through our company.
And how did it come to be? Because I think it's a really interesting story, this.
Well, it came to be, we've been very fortunate in business to make plenty of money, let's say that, over the last 20 years. And then we started to expand, doing the Dragon's Den thing before anybody else even thought of it on TV.
Yeah.
And we invested in all different companies, probably 20 to 25 different companies in the Sheffield, Yorkshire area. And one of the ideas that came forward was a World of Superheroes, and it's built on my passion since I've been 5 years old, collecting comics.
Yes.
And I think I've got I'm told I've got the biggest collection of superhero memorabilia in Europe.
That's astonishing.
At this present time, yeah.
So it's built on passion, built on your interests and family interests as well. Yeah. And you were just talking outside the studio about how much space all of this might take up.
I mean, we've had to have 2 different wings built onto the side of the house because my wife doesn't like the superhero stuff in the proper house, so that's in a different wing. So the West Wing, we call it.
The West Wing,
yeah,
full of superheroes. So tell me a little bit about your business acumen, because you talked about being successful in business, and just briefly investing in plenty of other businesses as well. But what was it that what was at the core of this? What was the first business?
Well, the first business was metals recycling business, which was a very profitable business and still is. We had our 25-year anniversary on the 4th of July this year. And I like to think of myself rather grandly as like a modern day John Ruskin, who was a 19th century humanist and philanthropist,
Yeah.
and he believed that the moral and social wealth of a nation was directly related to its art and architecture, which is what I subscribe to.
Yeah.
So I decided to, because we have been very fortunate, to dedicate a small portion of my modest fortune and resources and time into promoting art and artists in the local area.
Right, grand. So you're working with Stoneface Creative, for example, and we've just heard a little bit about the superheroes taking over Storeswood, and that worked really, really well as an event. You've got a couple of other things that are going on, which I want to return to in a second, which sound really, really exciting. Let's just go back to Tom, if we may. Tom, working with your father and helping him after he was used to people coming to him.
Yeah.
He wasn't proactively necessarily going out there and
no,
pushing.
he wasn't. No, I mean, he's. If you meet him, you wouldn't think it, but he is quite a shy person, and I think he's very sort of personal about his artwork and stuff like that. And I suppose everyone's, a bit delicate when it comes to criticisms and stuff like that. But my dad's always sort of shied away from the public eye, and he's done what he's done, which in a sense has been quite good for him, because it's sort of built up this fan base that's seen how great his work is. I mean, I have to say that in his son, but it is fantastic. But now, sort of like, I'm on board. I'm sort of like trying to get it out to that audience that otherwise wouldn't see it, and that's sort of what we've done now. I mean, since we've been working together, we've grown his audience probably 3 times the size as what it was 3 years ago. So we have a decent following on social media, and we have a decent sort of local presence as well now, which is nice. And I think we starting to notice that people are sort of knowing who we are and stuff like that, as opposed to just seeing us on the street and sort of like, oh, it's Stoneface. They sort of actually know more about us now, which is great. And
again, if you had to describe what Stoneface is, vision in terms of creating sculpture is, and your, if you had to pigeonhole your father's work into a style, how would you describe it?
I mean, it can't be done, but it's one of a kind, really. I mean, the majority of his work's sort of heavily influenced by sort of nature and the Green Man and that sort of stuff. But there's nothing that sort of my dad won't do. He's always coming up with new ideas, and it's really hard to work with him sometimes, because he's always thinking about, he's working on a current project, so he's thinking about the next 4 or 5 in advance from that. So it's interesting to see how his sort of mind works. But yeah, it's creative chaos, I guess. Creative
chaos, indeed. Well, I thought now would be probably a good time to read something about your father's work, and this came from Robert Allen. Now, I'm going to ask one of you to tell everyone who Robert Allen is.
So Robert Allen is Taylor Swift's manager. And he's born and bred in Sheffield as well, so that's great as well. So,
and this is something that Robert Allen said. He said, "To meet Andrew is an experience in itself. He's always thinking of the next project, not only his sculpting, but all the magical ideas how to make the wood area more interesting. And as you're walking on the paths he has created, you see glimpses of stone sculptures, but also the wood pieces. A metal horse jumps out from the stream that winds its way through the woodland. I own 2 pieces," says Robert Allen, "a horse's head and the other a horse with a girl lying on the horse's nose. I suggest that people go to see Andrew at the Woodward and the many beautiful creative ideas he's made come to life. You are assured of a spiritual experience as you walk around." And he said more. He talked about the water bubbling and gurgling on the way. I mean, what a lovely testimonial.
It's fantastic, and it does a great job of describing sort of the Woodland Gallery and to that extent of the business, which we haven't really talked about yet. But yeah.
Well, tell me more.
So yeah, I mean, we own a 10-acre woodland. My dad used it originally to sort of just create his work down there, effectively. But we sort of came up with the idea probably 2-3 years back, just as I sort of started to sort of open up to the public to showcase my dad's work. When we opened up, it quickly became more, than just about the artwork. It became more about the woodland as well, and we started seeing things that we could do potentially different, and how we could sort of engage people coming down more. And the feedback we get from the wood is incredible. People, there's not a bad word to be said about it. It really is fantastic.
So, I mean, that fits also with what Steve just talked about in terms of the power of art, if you like. And we hear how being in nature. I mean, the Japanese call it forest bathing, don't they?
Yeah,
Going for a walk, and the combination of nature and the sculpture must be very, very powerful.
It is, yeah. I mean, there really is nothing else quite like it, and in that sense, it's really unique. I think when people come down, it's not always just about the artwork. It's about sort of they come down for their own personal, to come down and clear their minds and enjoy the scenery, basically. And that's what it is, and that's why it's such an amazing asset to us, really, because it's more than just Stoneface. It's Stowe's Wood as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, loads of artists will not struggle in terms of their vision. That's something they're passionate about, but they might struggle when it comes to finding customers to buy their work. People who love their work. And you talked about people discovering your father, and now you helping him reach more people too. Yeah. And having endorsements like that one from Robert Allen, that must also unlock lots of new opportunities for you. Yeah, and for your father. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, I mean, it's going back to sort of basically when I came on board, it went from being a self-employed artist to a limited company, and we had to sort of find a way of saying, well, it's great we do art, but we need to find a way of actually getting that out there now and turning it into something that people know about and love and want to buy. And that's sort of what we've done over the 3 years. We've taken that sort of platform that everybody uses, social media, and we've just really sort of driven home in a personal way as possible, to try and sell who we are.
Yes. And you're here with Steve, so that's perhaps an example of a partnership working together. And I'd like to explore how sort of corporate partnerships with charities, events, and so on can work for you. And you can both chip into this in terms of your views on how that supports Stoneface. Steve, obviously, bringing business acumen to everything that you do as well. What have you seen when you've worked with artists in terms of their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to business? You must have seen artists who you've thought they really deserve to do well, but they haven't quite got it when it comes to business, and perhaps you've helped people.
Well, in my experience, the creative part of the brain and the commercial part of the brain are in two completely different areas.
Yeah.
And I'm mollified by people who can create and who are proactive. And I really want to support them. The stuff that they do is fantastic, but they struggle, although they can create beautiful things, they struggle to get people to see them and to buy them. So all I do basically is bring my contacts, my expertise in business, really just to expose them to the. And if you expose somebody who's no good to it won't work. They've got to have the talent to start with. All I can do is expose it to the outside world, and then and hopefully it all takes off, which it has done in Andrew's case.
Right.
Yeah. Certainly so.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's no point trying to become really, really good at marketing, for example, the artist, if the artist is no good.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is like any product anyway. I mean, people who have a fantastic product, you've got to have a fantastic product before you get involved with marketing it as well. But you can't necessarily think that the product itself brings people to you. You've then got to get really good at the communication element or the business acumen side. Yeah. Okay.
And it's not totally altruistic, because some of the artists that I work with, if I've chosen correctly and I've recognised their talent, and they are as talented as I think, once they become successful, the artwork that I bought off them when they first started off is going to be worth a lot more. Yeah. So as a businessman, it still makes sense to me. For me, it's not a charity. It's just helping them get where they need to be, and then so everybody, a good deal is a deal where everybody benefits, not just one person. So
yes.
And that's what I try to bring, and that's what I encouraged Andrew to get Tom involved, because he needed somebody like Tom to organise and pull things together, which he has done, and it leaves Andrew to do what he does, which is creating fantastic art.
Right, fantastic. So this is something you saw the need for this as well. You've encouraged Andrew to do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes that perspective shift can really help someone. So you telling him that must have sort of nudged it along quite a bit.
I think it did, and it's not only breakthrough artists like Andrew. I do a lot of work with Joe Scarborough, who's a very, very famous artist.
Yeah.
And his paintings sell for many thousands of pounds. But that's what he did. He painted and sold his paintings. So commercially, there was no path forward from that for prints and reproductions and stuff like that. And I can actually exclusively reveal today that in the autumn we've been working with Castle Galleries, who are launching a limited edition hand-signed collection of Joe Scarborough exclusives at Meadow Hall. Joe's agreed to be there for the launch, and that will put his paintings in 38 galleries in this UK and on their global website. So it's that's his legacy. So he's not just sitting on his houseboat painting. It's his legacy, and it will, which is at his age what he's interested in.
So that's absolutely brilliant news, and that was a global reveal here on Sheffield
Yes,
Live.
it was concluded yesterday, the deal, yeah.
That's tremendous. So utterly brilliant for Joe, a game changer most probably. So his paintings being sold worldwide, he'll be in Meadow Hall in autumn. So what's the sort of time scale on this? It's
going to be late October, early November, and it will be a big launch at the main Castle Gallery at Meadow Hall, and obviously Joe will be there to do signings and question and answer. So it should be a really fun event because Joe does love doing that.
Fantastic, excellent. Okay, well, we'll flag that up when we know the exact date for people to come along to Castle Galleries in Meadow Hall. Utterly brilliant news. Now, I'm going to ask you both just a couple of rapid-fire questions before we all expire from the heat or take a break for a track of music. But, Tom, if I could ask you first of all then. You're looking nervous now.
No, calm, honestly.
When it comes to social media, I've noticed Stoneface have a active presence on Twitter, for example, Instagram as well, which must be a great place to get that visual impact spread worldwide. Are there any sort of rights and wrongs that you've learned about social media for artists, or any tips that you could offer?
I think the first thing that you have to do is just have the right content to do it. There's no point in putting out just anything, like constantly. You have to have the right sort of images, that sort of thing, and that's what we spend time doing. Times is when your audience are active online as well. That's a big key part. You could post something, say at 9 o'clock in the morning, but if your audience isn't there looking on social media at that time, it's just dead in the water. So you've got to work out where your audience is and what time they're viewing things and stuff like that. They're my tips really. I mean, it's all about trial and error, and it's what works for you. That's it at the end of the day. It's just don't give up on it, basically.
No, okay, grand. Thanks for that. Steve, back to you, if I may then. So, superheroes really taken off in the cinema world over the last 10, 15 years or so. Absolutely. But comics have clearly been an enduring love for you since being a child. And do you think that there'll come a time when the public will have had enough of superheroes, or are we all sort of loving superheroes as some sort of escapism? Are they crowding out other forms of art? I mean, I know the comic world is very, very diverse indeed. Is that something that we're seeing properly on screen? Are there loads more comics still to be translated to screen? Does it crowd out other art, or does it actually support people's entry to enjoying art?
I do think it supports it. You could say there's a saturation, but there's a massive wealth of. The comic started in Superman 1938, Batman 1939. So there's 60, 70 years of stories that we haven't heard or seen yet. So it's the tip of the iceberg what we've seen. So it's going to have to be managed so the people don't get fed up and saturated. But there's one school of thought which says basically that the superheroes have replaced the old gods and the old beliefs that people had. Mankind needs to worship something. And in this secular age, a lot of people are now worshipping superheroes, rightly or wrongly, and but it is interesting. And the big breakthrough was CGI. So anything that you can imagine, they can now put on screen. That's the big difference. You can actually believe it's real when you see it.
So we've always loved stories, and there's an argument that humans' evolution was supported by storytelling. So in terms of stories that people would pass on from person to person before we could even write, and you might tell a story to warn your kids of danger, and that those sort of myths were passed on. And then comics and superheroes, you're talking about people... the escapism, the myth, the lore, the storytelling, and there's a huge amount still that could go on screen.
Yeah, but basically, superheroes, the clue is in the word. They're very moral. It's a very moral story. The good guys win, the bad guys lose. I'm not sure that's a bad thing to be letting our kids enjoy.
Yeah, indeed. What about you then, in terms of favourite superheroes? You know, it must be a difficult question for a guy.
For me, it's quite boring because it is the original Superman, because he's the hero that all other superheroes look up to. The Blue Boy Scout, they call him sometimes, and he's too good to be true. But he's I think he's what we all should aspire to be.
Fantastic. Grand. Thanks for that, Steve. That's brilliant. So I'd like to conclude, if I may, by thanking you both for coming in. It's been fascinating speaking with you. I'd encourage anyone to get down to Stoneface and enjoy a walk in the woods. Now, you're active on social media. You have a website, loads of beautiful pictures on there. So, Tom, do you want to give out some links first for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean... any social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all under the name of Stoneface Creative. The website, www.stonefacecreative.com. We've sort of just opened a charitable arm to Stoneface Creative as well, which is called Friends of Stoneface Creative. And that's the same again, it can all be found on his social media and stuff. And that's sort of to help promote the woodland and try and get more people to come and utilise this incredible asset we have in Sheffield.
Yes, a brilliant woodland. So I could say don't tell Amy about the woodland, but I'm not going to say that. Anyway, get on down there and take a look at the website. Fantastic. Steve, what about you? World of Superheroes.
Well, World of Superheroes is the new website and online store is under construction as we speak, which should be launching on the 1st of September. But if you go online, just put worldofsuperheroes.com and you'll see what a magical world is.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you coming in. And Joe Scarborough, more to be announced in terms of exact dates.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Let me know and I'll flag it on the show. But brilliant news, and thanks so much for making that announcement here on Sheffield Live. So superb. Steve Eyre, World of Superheroes. Tom Vickers, Stoneface Creative. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.